All right, welcome back everyone to the show, and I am really excited / nervous about this topic and what we're going to be diving deep into today. It's something I've never shared publicly about my personal experience with this, but I've got a gentleman here who has a video that went viral, over 1 million views, that really is an epidemic that no one is really addressing. And the reason why I brought him on and kind of had to man up myself to address this is because no one else is really publicly talking about it. And that's one of the things that I want to do with this podcast and this platform is feature people and situations that I think need to be kind of outed, for no lack of a better word. Before I bring him on, I'm going to play the video and the audio. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll have a link under it. You can watch the full video there. If you're just on iTunes or listening on with audio, hopefully the audio picks up clearly, but you'll definitely get the message. And after the video, it's about 3 minutes long, and he is addressing the courthouse, basically, about his human rights as a father. So just hold tight. This video is about 3 minutes long. It's gotten over 1 million views on Facebook alone. And it's the most important message I think many of you will ever hear that affects millions and millions of people around the world. So just hold tight, my friend. I'm going to bring you out after this video, but I think this is the best introduction possible. So I'm just going to play it here, and everyone can sit back and really absorb what he's saying here, because it is one of the best speeches I've ever heard in my life.
Well, thank you for having me. You have 3 minutes, and please proceed, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm here today to speak to you in reference to family court. Along with millions of other parents in this state and across the country, I too have personally had the unfortunate privilege of becoming intimately aware of the comings and goings of the family court judiciary. I can attest firsthand that there is not a single article of the United States Constitution that is not routinely violated in family court. It is a court where both I and millions of parents like me, as well as our children, are routinely subjected to egregious violations of our civil rights. I had my 11-month-old baby boy kidnapped and abducted from me by unjustifiable and unconstitutional state intervention, despite the fact that I had never committed or been convicted of any crime or abuse. I was afforded no presumption of innocence, no trial, no chance to face my accusers. The family court commissioner was my judge, jury, and executioner. I was categorically denied due process. So why are family courts throughout this state and this country separating children from perfectly loving, fit, and capable fathers without due process? What's driving all of it? Our government has financially incentivized the kidnapping and trafficking of children for profit through Title 4D of the Social Security Act, otherwise known as child support. Shocked and stupefied are not strong enough terms to describe my state of mind when I found out that the entire judiciary in California, including this council, are under contract with the executive branch agencies to help assist with enforcing Title 4D in exchange for federal incentive funds. Article 3, Section 3 of the California State Constitution states that the powers of state government are legislative, executive, and judicial. Persons charged with the exercise of one power may not exercise either of the others. According to the California Code of Judicial Ethics, a judge needs to uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. In what way, shape, or form could any of you sit here with a straight face and maintain that the judiciary is independent or impartial when you've crawled into bed with the executive branch in exchange for money? This is nothing short of state-sponsored abduction and trafficking of our children for profit. Worst of all, this corruption is committed under the guise that it's all done in the best interest of our children. Well, I got a news flash for everyone in this room today. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes, 14 times the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. So when the family courts tell us that you're taking our children away from fathers and driving those fathers into poverty through the racketeering and extortion activities of Title 4D, that it's all done in our child's best interest, excuse me when I say I don't know what the hell any of you are talking about. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. The state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people, As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation. Adolf Hitler. Thank you.
Wow. So just to go back, let me just pause this here. So that video, as I mentioned, has over 1 million views.
Yeah.
1 million views, almost 1,200 comments, almost 30,000 shares, and almost 8,000 likes. So I'm just going to close this out. I think that's the perfect way to welcome our guest, Mr. Eric Scharfenberger. And man, first of all, I want to just acknowledge you, man, for doing that and taking a stand and going into that courthouse. And like I said, when I reached out to you, I said, that's one of the best speeches I've ever seen and heard in my life. And this message is one that needs to be spoken and heard so badly. And I just want to thank you, brother, for taking the time to come in here and share. I know it's kind of a personal situation, and I'm going to kind of lay a lot of cards on the table that I've never shared before either. So come on out and introduce yourself, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. And yeah, it's definitely one of the, no, you're good, man. It's been a wild ride, dude. I wasn't expecting that video to get as much traction as it did. So it's been pretty crazy.
So maybe just walk me through, how did that you get that video? Like, it looked like it was recorded from like the council courthouse. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious how that even happened to get that footage and go in and present. Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, so it actually it wasn't a court date or a courthouse.
Okay.
The panel that I was speaking to is actually the Judicial Council of California. So
Okay.
They're like the governing body of the judicial branch of the California state government, and they're based down in San Francisco. And so they have business meetings that come up throughout the year, and they allow public comment. And so I was like, I'm going to go down there and give them a piece of my mind, you know? And I thought long and hard about what I wanted to say. And it's actually really interesting because I planned a completely different speech, right? So I originally, and I didn't change my mind until the night before. So my original plan was to I wrote this speech that was like very kid gloves, and it was to go down there to like win the hearts and minds, you know, and try to get on someone's good side. And, you know, surely they can't all be, you know, bad people or whatever. And then I was kind of sleepless the night before. Friggin' friends, man. Like you know, and it's the status quo of family court and how the judiciary operates, not just in California, but across the United States. They've been screwing over parents, mainly fathers, but a lot of mothers as well for decades now. So these people are well aware of what's going on, and there's no winning their hearts. Like, these people have got fat pensions, fat paychecks that they're taking care of their children with. Yeah. So you know, they're going to resist any sort of anything that would threaten their little nest egg. They're going to protect in my opinion, I think it's racketeering. I think it's racketeering and extortion, and they're going to protect their racket at all costs. So literally the night before, I was like, well, I'm just going to go down there and call these people out as hard as I possibly can, get it on video, and then release it online and just see what happens. And it went viral. So
yeah, talking about viral, over 1 million views. And before we had a chance to speak, and you know, what is the response, or, you know, putting yourself on a platform like that? Like, I'm sure there's been a lot of people like myself reaching out to you. Like, I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories of people on the other end of it, you know? Like, I'm just kind of curious, what has the feedback kind of been?
Yeah, honestly, it's, oh boy, it's been honestly overwhelming, extremely overwhelming. And it's really bittersweet. it's a real melancholy kind of thing for me, because there's definitely been so much support, so many fathers, and you wouldn't believe how many mothers, how many women have been reaching out to me, basically saying like, thank you so much. Like either these are mothers who have dealt with family courts and they've gotten the short end of the stick, or it's the wives of men who are, have children from another marriage who are just being completely oppressed and taken to the woodshed by our government. So overwhelming support, but it's also been kind of depressing as well. I mean, overnight, man, my inbox just was flooded with horror stories. I mean, so many that, I'm still responding to them. I'm still, got people reaching out to me, telling me their stories of like, of them going through it, of losing their children, of being unjustly having their access to their own children limited, for one reason or another. And none of them seem to be really good reasons at all, so it's been pretty wild. And it's definitely an issue that touches millions of people, and not just parents, but so many children are affected by this. And I think that really shows there's probably hundreds of pathologies that are directly related to single parent homes. Usually where the father's not there. That's one of the biggest epidemics right now, is that 1 in 4 children live in a home without their biological father in the United States. It's a pretty bad deal.
1 in 4, that's actually kind of less than I thought. I thought it might be higher than that, actually. That's still a terrible stat, but I thought it would be even worse than that.
I have seen sources from the U.S. Census Bureau that say like 1 in 3, that there's about 24 million children that live without their biological father in the United States right now. So it kind of varies.
Yeah, exactly. That's only in the U.S. And, I'm Canadian, and I went through this exact same disaster for a decade, more than, in the Canadian family court system. And it's the most traumatic thing I think anyone could go through. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. And it's almost a joke. Like if I didn't have the support system that I had around going through this, I was like, I don't know how old you are, but when I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant, I was like 22 years old. 22 years old. My son now is 14 years old. And having this distance relationship with him and going through court in my early 20s when all my friends were going to clubs and partying, and I was meeting with lawyers and doing parenting assessments, and just the stress and trauma that someone goes through at any age, regardless of that young age, man, it's no joke. And I would say it's the number one reason why we have a lot of the suicides and addiction issues and depression that we have, and not only, the parents that go through it, but the children that are stuck in the middle of it. And that's the real tragedy that no one's really addressing, is the children that are being used as pawns in separations or divorces. And that is just, luckily when I was growing up, my parents were, together, and I never had to go through that. I'm just trying to fathom what that would be like at a young age, going through your family house just being broken up. And if that's not traumatizing enough, to have the emotional pull of the parents trying to put each other, pit them against the one parent, it's awful. It's absolutely the worst thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. And one of the worst things that I have come to find in doing my own research and looking into specifically the family court system in the United States, and I mentioned it during my address to the Judicial Council, is all of the financial incentives that are hidden throughout the whole process, right? And I've had some people kind of detract, and like leaving comments, that weren't necessarily positive ones, but I mean, those are in such the minority. I mean, the vast majority of people are like, this is awesome. We're totally behind it. We support you, but there's some people that are like, oh, just pay your child support, you lazy bum type thing.
Not about that.
Right. No, the point is that it's fraudulent. I mean, these people are talking about quote unquote child support, and what they're really talking about is welfare recoupment. So basically, there's kind of a standard protocol of how these divorces happen in the United States, where most of the time it's, the spouse or the wife. I mean, out of all the divorces that happen in the United States, 80+% of them are all initiated by the wife, right? So over 80%, absolutely, 100%. You can take it to the bank. There's sources on that. So married fathers seldom ever initiate divorce proceedings. So this propaganda notion of like, oh, deadbeat dad, there's just dads, bailing on their families left and right. Total bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if you want me to cuss or not. But.
No, totally. Yeah, go.
Okay, sorry. But it's crap. It's not happening. Most of them are initiated by, the other side. And then what ends up happening is through accusation alone. Accusation alone is enough to get your kids ripped away from you without any sort of trial, any sort of evidentiary hearing, any sort of semblance of due process whatsoever that is supposedly guaranteed in the Constitution of the United States, right? That you have a right to a jury trial, a chance to face your accuser, and all this stuff. It's absolutely not true in family court. I mean, based on an accusation alone, they rip your kids away from you just to kind of CYA, cover their rear end. And that creates a precedent to where you're always fighting uphill. It's just an uphill battle from there.
It's guilty until proved innocent, basically. Are you familiar with parental alienation?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, yeah. I think that this is the biggest threat to our healthy families and societies and relationships between parents and children that literally no one knows about. And I'm going to read what the definition of it is here for those of people who are not familiar with it. So it says, I'm just on the Wikipedia page. It says, parental alienation is a process and the result of psychological manipulation of a child into showing unwarranted fear, disrespect, or hostility towards a parent and or other family members. It is a distinctive form of psychological abuse towards both the child and the rejected family members that occurs most exclusively in the association with family separation or divorce, particularly where legal action is involved. It undermines the core principles of both the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child. Most commonly, the primary cause is a parent wishing to exclude the other parent from the life of their child. But other family members or friends, as well as professionals involved with the family, including psychologists, lawyers, and judges, may contribute significantly to the process. It often leads to long-term or even permanent estrangement of a child from one parent and family members, and as a particularly adverse childhood experience. Results increased lifetime risks of both mental and physical illness. So when I first heard about this at 23, 24 years old and really looked into it deeply, I was like, this is serious, and this is exactly what I'm experiencing with the abuse that my ex put towards the relationship I had and with my son. And the effects are so, and I've read countless reports, watched countless YouTube videos, went to conferences, talked with professionals and experts, and I encourage people to look back in their own family dynamics. If you don't have a very good relationship with one of your parents, ask yourself why. What were the leading causes to separate you from that parent? And so often, and I've talked to countless people that, when they say, oh, I don't really talk to my dad, or I don't really have a good relationship with my mom. And when I dig deeper and get them to really think about it, it all comes back to something that they were told from the other parent. Oh, your dad, he doesn't care about you. Or, oh, your mom, she cheated on me and she's not a good person. Or all these it just torments and totally destroys a relationship against the targeted parent. I'm going to have some links down below this video for people to do more research on this topic themselves, but it's real, and it's happened to me and millions of other very good, loving, caring parents that because the other parent has an agenda to ruin your relationship with your child, it happens just like that. So that's my soapbox rant about how important parental alienation is and how it needs to be looked at as what it is, abuse.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And unfortunately, it happens all too often. And it's not a gender issue. There are fathers that can engage in parental alienation. There's mothers that engage in parental alienation. And I think one of the number one things that, that I could encourage any other single parent or parents that have gone through a divorce, if there's anything that I could say to encourage both moms and dads, is encourage your children to have a relationship with the other parent. Don't discourage it, and learn to love your children more than you hate your ex. Basically, you should love your kid more than whatever your former spouse or your ex or whatever. Your children should take precedence, and you guys both created them. And so it's only fitting that you would encourage that child to have the best relationship. Fortunately, it doesn't always happen like that, And I've actually seen some really cool lectures that have been done by children who were victims of parental alienation, who literally grew up their whole childhood, their whole young adult life, and into adulthood thinking, my mom never loved me, or my dad never loved me, and they were just some piece of shit that bounced and took off. And then lo and behold, they get older, they start asking questions, and they realize that separation wasn't actually the product of their parent willfully leaving. It was through very cold and calculated forms of manipulation by their own parent to basically sabotage their relationship with the alienated parent.
Well, here's what I'll go on that. I agree 1,000%. And I did something very similar that you did. I put together a 15-page document that I submitted to the Canadian Family Court when I was going through all of this, outlining the patterning of, and I can share about this because, to be honest, I don't care anymore. Like, I know your situation is different. You're currently in litigation with your, within the family court. Mine is just a mess, and it'll never be, I'll never say never, but I'm at a point now where I just want to expose the truth and help prevent other people going through the trauma and just freaking torture I went through. So I put together a 15-page outline of exactly what my situation was and traced it back through my ex's family history, that her mother had 3 children from 3 different men. None of these fathers were allowed to have any relationship, any contact with her children, not their children, her children. And when I was in this relationship with this woman and saw that, I was like, this is the definition of dysfunction. And light bulbs are going off. And then same with her sister. Her sister had a child and had a restraining order against the father. And I didn't really put 2 and 2 together that, like, hey, this is patterning here, like there's only so many, circumstances. And then it comes down to, hey, these are clues, man. And then to see the exact same thing happen to myself when I was just systematically deleted and used the same way these other fathers were, to just be, manipulatedly cut out using the court system because they're professionals at, navigating it. The mother told both of her daughters exactly how to do it and how to milk the system. And that was my frustrating thing. It's like, man, how did I not see the writing on the wall here? But it's just like you said, it's just this conditioning, and there's no real rights for parents, because this goes deeper than what happens in a courtroom. This is what's happening in their conversations with the child. Oh, yeah, you don't have to go to that visit if you don't want to. Oh, you're not feeling well? Okay, well, don't see him today. Oh, you're tired? Don't make that phone call to mom or dad tonight. Just these little things end up snowballing, and then the next thing you know, you're in my situation where you have basically, no access anymore. Like, I went from seeing my son, flying down to visit all the time, to being denied any, Skype calls even now. Like it's a slippery slope. And once it starts going, it snowballs really quick. And that's why I can understand now when people say, oh, I haven't seen my child in 10 years.
Yep.
It starts with these little things, missing a weekend here and there that they're not allowing. And then it goes to this. And then the child would just think, well, I don't need them,
Mm-hmm.
And it's the worst. It's the fucking worst.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. And it's all prodded on by manipulation from the parent that wants to sabotage the relationship with the other. And I mean, that's happening in my situation too. I mean, when my ex left, my son was 11 months old, and now he's 2. And I mean, there's times where, during the exchanges going to pick him up where he'll be all smiles, totally happy to see me. Right. And my ex will rock him back and forth and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I know you don't want to go with him. I know you don't want to go. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding. It's like, that's the lowest of the low for me. It's like,
yeah,
man, it's like, clearly you don't like me. And I'm totally okay with that. But like, you're manipulating your own flesh and blood that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Where literally you're taking your child saying, oh, I know you don't want to go with him. I mean, there's times where the car door opens up and my 2-year-old is calling me by my first name. And I'm just like,
and you know what? I hate to say it, man, but that's how it started with me, and that's how it's continued.
And it's like, who, and I'm hearing my son say, hi, Eric.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, who the hell taught him my first name? Like, why, it's, and it's really sad because I mean, it's actively encouraged, I mean, the times where I go to get him and it's, okay, time to go see Eric. And I'm like, no, he's supposed to call me dad. And it's like, oh, don't worry. There's someone else that he calls dad now. So, I mean, it's total alienation, dude. I mean, it's manipulation. It's psychological manipulation. And ultimately, I believe it's child abuse.
Oh, it's the most extreme form because it's taking their sacred relationship and just destroying it. It's the worst thing to do to anyone. And people say that this is going to sound extreme, man, but the butterfly effect that comes from this, like we talked about in the beginning, how it's the result of, let's be honest, just like depression, addiction, and suicide on both sides, the parent side and the children's side, because they can't be happy without being in a toxic environment like that. I think people that do this, it should be jail sentence, like immediately. Like if there's any form of this, they're not going to stop unless there's consequences. Look at all these people. I just read an article the other day about this guy who's facing 99 years in jail because of a claim that his ex-girlfriend said that he was abusive to her. And the only thing that saved his life was a Facebook picture that he posted a selfie of him on the exact same night that she said that it happened. And he was in like another town or something. And if he didn't have that picture, this guy would have been in jail for 99 years. And the thing was, not one charge or was filed or any consequence for the girlfriend doing that. That's insane. Because there's no, why wouldn't people do this? Because there's no consequences.
No, there's no repercussions whatsoever for making whatever accusations or embellishing or anything like that. No consequences whatsoever. Yeah. And they only stand to gain. It only stands to give someone a foothold when you're going through, a custody battle or a divorce or something like that. It's all bad. And, I can't even imagine like being on the receiving end of being alienated, and having to hear my son call me by my first name. Like I could never in a million years ever be able to look at my sweet little boy and tell him, call that woman by her first name. Yeah, like I couldn't do it. Like there's just no way. Like I don't understand. Like I don't understand what goes through some people's head or how people can be filled with that much hate that it's like you can look at it.
It's simple, man. They're sociopaths. They're straight up sociopaths. Like that's how it is. Like that's literally how low it has to be, and call it what it is. It's sociopathic behavior. And the thing that really is the collateral damage in all this is people like this. These are my parents who have seen their only grandchild one time. Actually, twice. When he was born, they were there, and then when he was about 4 or 5 years old. And since then, they've not been allowed to visit or even talk to him in years. And it's you know, it's not just the parent that's involved in this. It's the extended family member. It's the child never knowing and understanding who his family background and real heritage roots are, because that half of the family is just deleted. So how can they be secure, confident, and have any kind of self-awareness on a high level, because half of their wholeness has just been terminated? So it goes deep, man. It goes really, really deep.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people have been asking me, you know, like, what's the solution? Like, how do we fix all of this stuff? And if anyone's interested, go check out the Fathers' Rights Movement. They're a group on Facebook. They have a main Facebook page, although I've heard rumors that it got taken down in like the last couple of days. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but there's a Fathers' Rights Movement page for every state in the United States. There may be one for Canada. I'm not sure, but they've been pushing, and they actually got passed a shared parenting bill. And they are advocating for a 50-50 rebuttable presumption of shared parenting in the case of divorce where there are children involved. And basically what the bill does is it makes it that in the event that there's a divorce where there are two parents that are fit parents, right? The judges have no, they cannot deviate from starting by default at 50-50. Right? Now that can be rebutted by evidence, meaning that, you know, if one of the parents is not a fit parent, the burden of proof is on you to prove it, right? People have the right to be innocent until proven guilty. So if mom or dad is really scummy and, you know, they are truly an unfit parent, you're given the opportunity to show your evidence, present that, and then the judges can consider that. But absent any evidence that, you know, either of the parents are unfit, it forces the judges to begin at 50-50, right? So it can be modified if the parents want to, but it's a great bill, and it starts everything out on an even playing field. And I think if we could get a bill like that passed in every state in the country, that would be huge. That would be absolutely huge.
You know, I'm not going to share too much on this because it's still in development, but I'm actually working on a project that is a way for couples to basically put together a contract, kind of like a prenup, but not around the finances, but around the parenting, and using some of the new technology. I'm kind of involved in blockchain and stuff. So there's ways to do these contracts where it can be peer-to-peer. And the thing is, with using lawyers, you know, like lawyers are one of the biggest problems. And basically, I went through a number of them and realize that their incentive is to keep this drawn out as long as possible, because that's their billing hours. They don't want to resolve this. They want to stretch your case out that should only be maybe a couple weeks or a couple trials into years. And it's like you said, it's the biggest racket that they're making. It's $1 billion industry. Like the divorce industry is $1 billion industry, and it's just getting bigger, you know, like especially nowadays with just, it's not going anywhere unless, like what you said, these bills come out and people start taking their private matters and empowering themselves to set up parenting plans and contracts and prenups themselves. I think anyone who gets married these days with a prenup is a freaking just, what are you thinking? You know, it's like, it's to be honest, man, it's like you've got a 50% chance, like, that this is not going to work out. And how many of your past relationships have worked out?
Right. It's actually a little bit over that now.
Yeah.
I think it's like 52% now. It's a little bit over 50 of all marriages fail.
Yeah.
You know, I had a guy tell me once, and he was like, he's like, you want to know what I tell all my friends when they're about to get married? He's like, and he just tells this story about like, hey, let's say we're going to go skydiving, right? I put you in the plane. We get up to altitude. We put your parachute on. We open the door. You're standing in the doorway. You're ready to jump. And then he's like, oh, by the way, before you jump, there's a 52% shot that your parachute may or may not open. Are you still going to jump? And when he put it that way, I was just like, oh, man, like, yeah, there's no way in hell. So I wish somebody had told me that a long time ago. I could have saved myself a lot of trouble.
Well, and a lot of money, man. Like divorce, it's like the most financially crippling thing anyone can go through. Like a friend of mine just lost like a $200,000 house that he just bought, and is and it just happens all the time. Like it's just yeah, man. It's you have to be optimistic, but at the same time you have to be realistic. At least protect yourself as much as you can moving forward, and right. Covering the bases. And out of curiosity, after going through this, has your perception, like, do you think you'll ever get married or have another kid or anything like that? No.
Nope. No way.
Exactly.
Me too. Doing it.
Yeah, like literally,
it's just not worth it, And it's sad. It's sad because it's like that's all I cared about, man. Like,
yeah.
The way that our divorce happened was extremely abrupt. Like I did not see it coming, like at all. And I mean, I was totally committed to my family. Like that's what I wanted. Like I love being a dad. Like that's the best thing in the world for me. I love my two little boys more than life itself. And so at this point, that's basically what I'm committed to. I just want to be the best dad that I can for them. I'm still fighting it out in court. I'm facing going to jail here soon for contempt of court because I can't afford to pay their extortion payments that they call child support.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. Yeah. My ex and her attorney filed a motion to hold me in contempt of court. And I haven't been able to hold a judge. Dude, I've over the last year and a half, I've been in court literally probably over 30 times. And
in how long of a period?
In a year.
In a year, and oh yeah.
Easily. I mean, and it's still going, And this is also, these people who are, wanting to throw me in jail for contempt of court, right, are the same people that approached my attorney early on and said they will drop all of the child support provided that I do what? Terminate all my rights to my son. So these people don't, I mean, it's really sad. My ex, she does not care about the money whatsoever. This is being used purely as a tool to alienate me from my son. And so it is what it is. I'm taking it in stride and gonna, keep putting up the good fight, but the state needs to change too. I mean, the government should not be allowing this kind of stuff to go on, but the reason why they do is because they make serious dough on it. Specifically in California, every child support case goes through what's called a child support magistrate. This is a guy who's not a judge. He's not a real judge. It's not even a real court proceeding, right? But he's got the black robe on and he's sitting up there and he's got a bailiff and, you're at the courthouse, right? But it's an administrative process, right? And what I came to find out is, and I have the documents. I can, after we're done, I will send these to you if you want to see them. But I was able to find the documents that show that these child support magistrates are actually under contract with the enforcement agencies, right, to help assist them with enforcing it, and they get kickbacks from the federal government to do it. So part of our government, not only at the federal level in the United States, but also at the state level, is we adhere to a doctrine called the separation of powers. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but basically the way it is our government is made up of three different branches, right? Judicial, legislative, and executive, right? The judicial, that's like the courts and everything. The legislative, that's who writes the laws. And the executive branch, they're the ones that enforce it, right? Well, it's really, really important that all of those three stay separated, right? So essentially what they're doing, imagine a guy is on trial who's allegedly committed a murder, right? And then right before the trial kicks off, they find out that the judge, who is supposed to be remaining impartial, and an unbiased guy to like judge and make a decision, turns out that he's actually under contract with the prosecutor to help increase conviction rates in exchange for money. That's exactly what's happening in these child support cases. So these judges' salaries, or these fake judges' salaries, these commissioners, are directly reimbursed through federal incentive funds. And how are those funds earned? By the collection efforts made on behalf of the enforcement agency. They're earned through the amount of child support cases that are opened in general. So the more cases they open, the more money they collect and extort from people, the more money these assholes make. So in my opinion, these judges, these family court judges, court commissioners, they are simple fucking thieves. Period. End of story. And they're making their money. Their racketeering scheme is based on trafficking children. Period. I mean, it really is that simple. And it's not exaggerating either. I mean, when you follow the money, that's what you find. It's even written into the California Family Code, right? That the legislation has found that the county child support enforcement agencies create a net increase in revenue for the state. So,
well, that is ridiculous, and I believe it 1,000%, because two things I want to point on here. One is I'm going to try and help you out and show you how you got that video that's gone viral with like 1 million views.
Right.
Did you ever think about putting a link for a GoFundMe down there saying, hey, I'm trying to fight this fight. I'm going to be put in jail. I could help you set that up, man. Like that would definitely get traction, and people would definitely support that. And I think that would be phenomenal for,
I've never thought about that. But I mean, I'd definitely be willing to talk to you about it. And
my background's in internet marketing and stuff. And definitely with the views and the traffic you're getting to that video, there's definitely ways to monetize it, like for sure.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that a guy like yourself could be facing jail because that's the way the system's set up. Like, that's so fucked. Right. Okay, well, here's a guy doing everything he can, trying to be the best dad he can for his kids. Oh, well, let's now put him in jail because he can't meet this quota. Like, that's so unbelievable.
And the only reason why, I even got to the point of being unemployed was because of all the stress and all the drama and constantly being called away from my job, right? To go to court.
Sure.
You think my employer likes that I have to constantly say, oh, hey, I got to take another day off. And, it's actually double for every day that you have to go to court. There's usually days beforehand that you have to take off, because the only way to file paperwork and responses to whatever they're trying to do is you have to physically have to go to the courthouse and, file a bunch of paperwork. And it's just like, talking to these people is like talking to a brick wall. They just don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. Like I said, it's just more money for them to have this process continue. Or the other option is to hire an attorney to go do that for you, but he's charging you a couple $100 an hour to go and file like a piece of paper, like it's insane. It's absolutely the definition of insanity. Yeah. The second thing I want to touch on, that was number one, to try and help out with that situation financially to get you, avoid going to jail. That's so, man, I can't believe that. But to be honest, I was very close to being in your similar situation, because what you said about how your ex said, if you sign these papers, then this is, what'll happen. So after about a decade, 10 years of going through what you went through in court, meeting, conference calls, court trial, all this stuff, right before it was going to trial, after like countless hearings, it's about to go to trial, and then she flees Canada. She leaves Canada, moves to the States, gets married down there, and then they're like, oh, well, this case is now closed because the primary residence is in California. So you have two options. A, start all over after a decade in the Canadian court system, go down to California, start over, where the price is like triple, and I'm not a resident there. I can't go and work down there.
Right.
or you can just try and work it out yourself. And I was like, at this time, I was like 29 years old. No, I was like about 30, just over 30 years old. And I was like, I got to start making some money. Like I got to get my life back on track.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, she moved to California. And then at this time, things were actually starting to get better between us. Like we were starting to talk. I was going to California to go visit him and this and that. And then basically she said, look, here's an offer. I'll give you everything you want, unlimited access. You can come visit anytime. We'll just quit all this legal stuff, because we were both exhausted and broke from it. And she's like, but the one thing I want is now that I'm married to this guy, won't mention his name, but now that I'm married and they had a child themselves, the only thing we want, we don't want any more, because I was paying child support the whole time and everything. I never missed a month of child support or anything. And she said, the one thing that we want is to have the legal rights of the father being her new husband.
Right.
I said, absolutely not. So basically to adopt, like to kind of do like a family adoption with.
Right.
I said, absolutely not. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to sign off on that. No, I'll go back to court. Then she says, do you realize what you're saying? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And then she said, okay, well, we're going to file for this motion anyway. And we're going to get it because we're a stable family. He's been in my care and custody the whole time. And now if you don't allow this and don't go through with what we want, we're going to make it impossible for you to have any contact or relationship with our son.
So they basically use your own son as this little pawn.
Well, they blackmailed me. It was straight up blackmail. They said, if you don't do this, if you don't sign this agreement, then basically you'll never see and talk to your son again. And we're going to go back to court and we'll get approved for this because of this, this, and this. And after thinking about it and just being so burnt out, and just because before that, they were letting me go visit him all the time I wanted. Things were finally good. I was doing the Skype calls every week. Things were finally becoming normal, like it was finally a healthier environment. And I was like, well, really what you really want is time and access to my son. That's really what I want. And she's saying she's going to give me unlimited of that. And I didn't care about not having to do the child support and stuff anymore. That wasn't the motivating factor. I just wanted to have a normal, stressless relationship with my son and not deal with lawyers in court anymore. So I made the biggest regret of my life. And I said, okay, I don't want to go back to the court. I don't want to lose contact with my son. I bought into her lie and her scheme. So as soon as I signed it, they went dark.
Yeah.
Communication closed. And now I have no legal repercussions because I signed away the little right I still had. And that was my biggest regret, man. And I got totally played and I got totally fucked again. And since then, that's been 4 years and I haven't seen him, been able to see him. I was back in Canada this past summer, a couple months ago, reached out. No, it's not a good idea. We don't want you to come visit. Last time I had this call with him was at Christmas 2 years ago. And then at the end of the call, he just hung up on me because his mom came in. Like, I've never shared this publicly, and this is probably a shock to when I release this, a lot of people. But the thing is, why I'm sharing this is because 2 reasons. One, a lot of people that look at guys like you and me, and if they just asked, when's the last time you saw your child? And if I said, automatically think, oh, deadbeat dad, or he doesn't care about his child. But the reality is I freaking fought for over a decade in court, tens of thousands of dollars. I did everything humanly possible to maintain contact and a relationship with my son as possible, period. And for people on the outside looking in, all they see is the fact, oh, well, he's not around. And I'm sure like his school teachers that I've reached out to are like, oh, well, you're not around, so we're not going to give you any access to any information, things like that. And for people watching this, I want you to think about your own family situation. What's the real reason? Do you know the real reason or the real story why your mom or your dad wasn't around? I bet you it wasn't because they didn't want to be. It's because they weren't allowed to be. Especially looking back through her family dynamics with all these other fathers that have been separated, you know, and their kids have no idea. They just hate their dads. You know, it's just like this. Oh, my dad's he didn't care about me. He took off. No, he probably did exactly what I tried to do too, but was obviously unsuccessful, just like I have been. You know, like it's so. Man, I wasn't expecting on sharing this much, but this here that's him. That's my boy that I haven't been able to basically father because of the circumstances you've talked about, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man,
it's crazy. There's usually no reason for it. I mean,
there's no reason. The only reason I'll just finish on it. The only reason this all happened was because when he was a few months old, I found out that she did not register me on the birth certificate, did not declare me as the father, and gave him her last name instead of my last name. And then what started all of this, I said, well, that's going to change. You're going to register me on the birth certificate because I was there when he was born. We discussed him. I didn't even want him to only have my last name. I said, well, he'll have both of our last names. She said, okay. And then when we were leaving the hospital, she signed everything without me. I didn't know what I needed to do there. It was my first time having a baby in a hospital. Like, I don't know what I should be doing. So she did. This was all set up before. And then I said, okay, well, if you don't do it, then I'm going to get a lawyer and I'm going to ensure my fatherly rights are acknowledged. Right. And that just set off this whole thing. There was no abuse. There was no anything else to justify all this. It was just her wanting to protect her son and have things her way.
Right.
And that's that.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like kind of the same thing with me. I mean, what's incredible is that pre our divorce, nothing, like no issues, no nothing. Like, and then post divorce, I am Satan himself. You know what I mean? Like the accusations of abuse and all this stuff. And it's like the craziest part. It's like, okay, but you can't produce one police report. You can't produce any tangible evidence of basically anything, and I'm a guy like to this day, never been arrested, never been charged with or convicted of any crime, any abuse ever in my fucking life, man, ever. I've literally never done anything wrong, and apparently guys like that just, I rarely even drink, dude. Like
I haven't been drunk in 2 years. I haven't. Yeah.
Dude, yeah. And it's like, and yet guys like that, apparently it's just like, got to limit their access to their children, and I got a buddy of mine. He's a former firefighter, and that is crazy to think about. So here's a guy who he was also alienated from his children, his 4 boys. And, here's a guy who he is entrusted with the lives of everyday citizens in public, but yet you won't trust this dude with the lives of his own children. Like, it just blows my mind.
If you want to hear something even more ironic than that, at the time when I was going through all of this, I worked for Child and Family Services as a youth support worker.
Did you really?
I had 2 foster kids that I was caring for. 2 foster kids that were taken in by Child Family Services that I was their support worker for. And I was working at the public school system in Canada, working with at-risk youth pretty much as a counselor. So I was a school counselor in a school system, in a high school, and I had a second job as a youth worker at a Child and Family Services. And I had letters of reference from both of them to the court saying, this is unprecedented. Like, what is happening here? And they still said I had to have supervised visit access with my own children.
That's crazy, man.
When I was the guy doing the supervising for these other foster kids.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even write a more ironic situation, It's so twisted. And like, here's the thing, like, I'm a university graduate. I'm a university professor here. I was a TED Talk speaker. Like, it's not like I'm some freaking junkie on the corner.
Right. Yeah.
And the thing that's so frustrating to me, I know guys that are, I don't want to say unfit parents, but that definitely have questionable behavior, and they're living with their kids, you know?
Sure.
And I'm just like, because the mother likes them still, the mother still loves them. But I know as soon as the shoe drops and that relationship ends, they're going to be exactly in our situation, which is terrible to say, but that's just how it is, you know? Like, it's, people got to be super careful, you know?
Yep.
And
yeah, and if we can just keep pushing, you know, I think the way out of this is to, you know, the state needs to start adopting positions and endorsing policies that protect parents' relationships to their kids, not hinder them. You know, I mean, I find it unbelievable that, you know, the state wants to, you know, the state will be the cause for why there is a discrepancy or you know, a disparity between the access of a father to his children. And then the state says, you know, oh, well, we're not going to pay for that. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. There's perfectly good dads over here, and he would have 100%. He would take his kid full time if that were the case.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the only reason why he's limited to the access that he has is because of what you're doing. And then you look back at the dad and say somehow, well, this is your fault and you need to pay for it. And really what it is, and, you know, it pains me to even hear you say that you're being forced to pay child support for literally like the theft of your own child, basically.
Well, that's the thing.
That's insane to me.
When all this happened, she actually abducted him from when he was 6 months old to over a year, about 18 months. I didn't see him. She took off. I came home to an empty apartment. I came home literally after a weekend that I went back to visit my parents in another city. I came back when I said, look at, you know, if you're not going to fix what you did to be able to, you know, acknowledge me and my family as, you know, the biological parent to him, I'm going to get a lawyer. And I meant it because I was going to, and I started that process, and she knew that. So when I went to visit my parents, she cleaned it out, came back to an empty apartment that, get this, my parents were the co-signers for, that they had to pay for all the damages, the extra month's rent that were still on the lease. It's like thousands of dollars, man.
Wow.
Thousands of dollars we had to pay out the rest of that rent. All my possessions were stolen. Like I had pictures from my Australia trip, my journals, everything, my clothes, like everything was gone. And then, so she literally kidnapped my son, went to the other side of Canada, filed an ex parte order, making up all this stuff why she had to flee the one province she was in to go here, got an order for sole custody, got a restraining order against me, got a child support order for me, and a few other things. I can't even remember. And then what happened was, when I finally moved and relocated out there to be closer to him and start the proceedings there, I said, hey, how can you grant all these orders without even hearing my side of it?
Yeah.
Here's really what happened. I went to go file and get a lawyer here. She freaked out, thought that she would lose her, you know, custody. And I didn't even really want to break up at this point. I just wanted my fatherly rights and protect myself in case something happened in the future, like it just did. And then the court was like, oh, well, we granted these orders because you weren't here. I was like, well, I was never contacted about this. It was just like, hello. And it was, like you said, it was an uphill battle ever since then. Because even when I went to the police, they said, well, what did you do to make her leave? So, well, what do you mean, what did I do?
Right.
I got a lawyer. I wanted to get I wasn't registered on the birth certificate. She gave him her last name. Like, I wanted to install my, you know, my rights. And they're like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And they're like, oh, but they didn't. I could see they didn't believe me. They thought I did something. Right. And I was like, look, I'll take a lie detector test now. I'll do anything, you know. Like, I'm just trying to freaking be a dad here.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, what a deadbeat you are. She leaves to the other side of Canada, and you're such a deadbeat that you move and you follow.
And I dropped everything, man. And that wasn't the only time. I moved like 3 or 4 times in that 10 years period.
It's crazy.
You know, I flew to Australia. She moved to Australia for a while. I flew to Australia to go visit him. Twice.
It's sad, man. You know, you know, I always maintain that the the person who's victimized worse or the worst in all of this is the child. It's not you. Sure. It's not me. It's our kids, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're the ones that take the brunt of, and they're going to, one day, they're going to have to come to terms with, oh, wow, like I got lied to and I got ripped off. Like I was denied a relationship with my mom or my dad. And for what? For what? For nothing.
For her own power, for her own agenda. Yeah. And have you read any of Ryan Thomas's stuff? Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I have. We got connected through when my video dropped, you know, and so I've been watching sort of his battle going on, and yeah.
Well, Ryan, he's got some great resources, you know, like he was the son of an alienated father, so he was separated from his dad for like decades. And then later in life, he reconnected with him, and now they have a phenomenal relationship. And he totally cut off the relationship with his mother after he realized how she poisoned him against his father. And he's got these great books, you know. Like I'll have them linked below here. Like I've read all of his stuff, and he's got, you know, just phenomenal literature on what it's like as a child going through this. And his dad actually just wrote a book too that I read, and it really shares the freaking torture and trauma that women and men go through when they're separated from their children. So I would say that that's one of the best resources out there. Another resource I would say is there is a Facebook group called Parental Alienation Worldwide Support Group. I'll have the link below here. And there's over 30,000 people in this group. And that just shows you how, you know, how prevalent this is. And there's horror stories in here. I'm just going to read the intro to this group. The founder is Ken. I'd love to get this guy on the show too. The intro says, "You are not alone. We are here coming together as a global community to speak out and speak up against what is happening to our children. We will no longer tolerate our children being alienated from one half of their family at the hands of adults who are supposed to love them and are a form of the corrupt family court." And if you just read some of these posts by parents, man, it's just like you said that you've been getting in your inbox from people that saw your video. It's just heart-wrenching, you know. It's just so awful, and there's got to be a solution. And you know, one of the projects I'm working on, like I said, is just to have something set up, just a peer-to-peer contract. You know, I'll have a link.
It's funny that you mentioned contract, your idea. Yeah. You know, we had a standard in our country, right? Our justice system has always been a system that was based on finding the facts, right? And finding who's at fault, where's the liability, right? That all changed relatively recent. This new experiment that we're engaging in and the way divorces are handled in family court, it's relatively new. No-fault divorce has only been around since 1969.
Right.
Thank you, Ronald Reagan, for that. I don't know why the hell he did that, but California was the first state to pass a no-fault divorce law, meaning that a divorce could be granted for virtually any reason or no reason whatsoever, right? And, you know, the problem with that is that the court stopped treating marriage like a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
When it all in jurisprudence, it's always been treated as a contract, right? Because it is. You're taking serious vows. You're, you know, and making a pretty serious commitment. And you know, it's unfortunate that no fault divorce really allowed the government to come into the private realm of the family and just wreak all sorts of havoc. And once they realized they were able to incentivize it through Title 4D in the Social Security Act, game over. They're there, and they're gonna hold on to that like a bulldog on a pork chop, you know, because it makes a lot of money. It's multi-billion-dollar industry, like you said before, you know. But I mean, to me, it sounds that simple. It's like, you know, how does a court proceeding go when there's a car accident? Are you at fault? No. Okay, cool. Then you don't owe anything.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't cause the accident, right? And I mean, maybe I'm just too much of a simpleton. Maybe, you know, I don't know. But I kind of think the same way, you know, with divorce. It's like if you're a mom or a dad and you didn't file for the divorce, you didn't force the other person to go on welfare, then you're not responsible to pay it back.
Yeah.
You didn't cause anything. You didn't do it, you know? And as long as you're there willing to say, no, I'll gladly take custody of my child 50% of the time and provide whatever he needs, then the government should just leave both parents the hell alone. You know, I think both parents have a responsibility to equally provide. And I think the best way to do that, give two fit parents 50-50 custody, as long as they're fit parents, and then leave them the hell alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen, brother. Like, I think that is what just look at how that would just change the world. You know, like it really would just take the biggest stress factor. There's two things: death of a family member and death of a relationship, especially with kids, are the two most intense situations anyone could ever go through. And you can't deal with death. Sorry, we're all going to die. You can't fix that, but we can fix this problem. And that's what I want to do. And just having it simplify that we're reasonable people. Imagine if you could just go in and have a agreement that, hey, if we get separated, you can set the terms yourself. You can be in control of your parenting future and your financial future. Set the terms yourself. Don't give it to some stranger in a freaking robe that hasn't even looked or read your file to understand the dynamics of your case, because they don't.
Right.
They're so they can't read everything. Like I still at my parents' house in Canada, I've got cartons, dude. Cases of files, cases. And one day I want to say, hey, you know, my boy, this is what really happened. This is the effort that I really put in.
Right.
And just be like, this is what I did. And I'm sorry it wasn't enough, but I did everything possible. And one thing that my dad said to me that I'll never forget, he said, you know what, son? I can't believe you've done everything you've done at that age, that you've just put up with all this and went through, you did it. You know, you did everything you possibly could have. And he says, to be honest, if I had to go through all that craziness, even at my age now, I would have walked away years ago. When I heard that, it was the first time I really realized how heavy of a situation I was in and what I really went through. Because my dad is like, he's phenomenal. He's the best. He's my best friend. And I have so much respect for him because he always does the right thing. But when he said that he wouldn't have been able to sustain and persevere as long and as much as I did, that really put it in perspective. Like, this was a heavy situation. And that's why there's so many parents out there or father or children out there without parents. Because most people, like you said, you can't have work and court because, you know, one of them's got to go. And most people, just by, you know, survival, they're like, okay, well, I got to work to feed myself and my kids. I can't pursue this for years and paying off for this. So ultimately, that relationship is severed. They don't get their rights installed. And, you know, that's why we have what you said, 1 in 4 biological children don't live with their biological father or parent. Like, that's why. That's why people lose control of being able to self-govern themselves.
Right. Yep. 100%, man.
Wow. This has been the most emotionally,
I know, dude.
The emotionally charged call I've ever had. And I think that it's fair to say it's the most important one as well, and the best one. I don't even know how long we've been talking for, man. I have no idea.
Me neither. I didn't even keep track.
I have no idea, but I think it went the directions that we had no schedule. This is the first time myself and Eric have ever talked. I reached out to him last night and we put this together today. So I think that obviously we said what was on our minds. And, you know, if you're watching this and this makes sense to you, share it, comment, put it out there, because it's a message that not too many people are willing to share publicly, but it needs to be exposed, and change won't happen unless there's change makers willing to make it happen. And I think with what you did with your video, over 1 million views, And definitely, as I said, I would love to work with you to try and, you know, structure to try and keep you out of jail, man. I can't believe. Can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 31.
You're 31. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 31. Never been arrested before. Never committed any crime. But, you know, the government wants their money. And if you can't pony up the dough, they're willing to crack the whip over you and send fathers to jail. And, I mean, think about it. I mean, it's just they send a dad to jail, and it's like my kids don't get to see me then for however long they want to keep me locked up in a cage. So,
well, there's going to be a GoFundMe account under this video. Guys, let's keep this father out of jail so he can keep being the father that his kids need. You know, let's just make this video go viral, share it out, and whatever you can give, just do it for what's right, you know. And also, when you see fathers out there or mothers that are going through a tough time, reach out to them. It doesn't have to be financially, but just support them, listening to their story, connecting them with resources. We're freaking people. Anyone watching this, you could be in our situation, right? If you're out there dating, having relationships, having sex, you can have a kid. If you get married, so 52%, this is going to happen. This is not something that's just like a one-off. This is happening to millions and billions of people around the world. Like there's 7 billion people, you know, 3.5 of them are going to get separated. It's just a fact. So I don't think there's anything more important, and that's why I'm dedicating my next project to build out these abilities to protect people's parenting rights and have, you know, peer-to-peer contracts in place so that lawyers aren't the ones dictating how much you have to pay to have a relationship with your kids, and judges aren't going to dictate how much time you can spend with your children. You're going to have a way to submit that, if it even needs to go to court, as the baseline, like the bills that are trying to get passed for 50-50 parenting. So, Eric, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to kind of say to wrap things up here before we put a bow on this this baby? And
yeah, just thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you for watching the video. It's been great talking to you, man. It's like I already feel like I've known you for years, hearing about your struggle. And it's like, dude, I mean, everything that you said, I've been there, done that, you know. And for anyone out there, any moms, dads that are struggling and with the same sort of issues, not able to see their kids, keep fighting, hang on, don't lose hope. And I mean, there's 25,000 dads that unfortunately take their lives every year because
how many?
25,000.
25,000.
Yeah, that's the last figure I heard is 25,000 fathers every year will commit suicide due to being alienated from their kids through family court or just, you know, drama post-divorce. And it's a traumatic thing. And so if you're a father or you're a mom and you're going through it, can't see your kids, you know, it's I know it's hard, but I guess the last thing I would say is keep fighting for your kiddos. Don't ever give up on them. And, you know, I'm always available. I mean, if any, you know, I've had so many parents reach out to me, you know, you're not alone. It is hard to talk about this issue because, I mean, it's personal and it's ugly and it's, you know, real dramatic, and, you know, who wants to talk, you know, air their dirty laundry out to the public. But, you know, the best way to, you know, to deal with something like this is to shine a light on it, you know,
I couldn't have said it.
Expose it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. 2 thoughts came to mind. 25,000 people. People just like close your eyes, and what I want you to do is go on to Google and put in, you can do this actually. I've done it before for a group of 500 people because I went to a conference with 500 people. I wanted to see how much volume 500 people look like. And I got this image of what 500 people look like, and it was insane. I want you to do that for 25,000 people. Go to Google, type in crowd of 25,000 people, just so you can visualize how many of those people are no longer here now and how many children that's affected. And I don't want to get all spiritual and religious, but I'm actually Catholic. I go to church every Sunday, and I'm going to pray a rosary right after this call for those people that have lost their lives due to this epidemic. 25,000 people dying, that's an epidemic. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to get Eric set up with a calendar, and he's going to start. I actually have a calendar set up. It's like a calendar where you can kind of go and select a time to set up a one-on-one call. I'm going to try and get you set up with your own consulting practice where you can actually coach other people going through this to try and help fund your case to keep you out of jail. So if you want to set up a one-on-one call with Eric, I actually have a coaching practice that I use myself. We'll both have our links up there to Calendly. You can do a free 15-minute consultation. And if you want to work with him to have ongoing counseling and support through this process that you're going through, it's going to be going to a good cause to help keep him out of jail. And it'll also help you learn from everything that he's researched, that he spent the last few years of his life doing all the hard work to help protect parents maintain a relationship with their children. And this is the best value he's offering to society. And you can actually start paying him for that service because it's the best thing you can invest in your relationship with your children. So we're going to have these links below. I'm just thinking out loud here to try and help my brother out and also help you out watching this. If you're trying to navigate these stormy seas of family court, you need a captain to help guide you. And that's what we're here to do. So I think that's a great way to wrap up. Share this, comment below, put this out in groups, and let's spread this message to try and help bring kids back to their parents. Let me just stop this.